Well, for today's POV test drive video, we're actually keeping it in the fleet here. We're going to take my Tacoma out for a drive today. Most of you that follow along with all the videos already know this truck pretty well. For those of you that don't, first of all, you need to subscribe to the channel because these old Toyotas are pretty much all I ever talk about. This is a 2006 Tacoma SR5, and it's pretty much stock. You know, I got a set of 265 tires on it, on these NV wheels. Otherwise, yeah, this is a pretty much bare bones stock pickup truck that apparently I've left locked. It's come a long way. I've got a whole playlist of turning this thing from a neglected old work truck to what it is now. And some people do have question about it being a real SR5 because it doesn't have the sliding rear window. Well, it used to, but Eva decided to throw a 2x4 through the back window, and all she could get her hands on in the used market was one of those solid rear windows. So one of the only other modifications that I made to this, aside from like some lighting here and there, the headlights and stuff, has been this iDoing head unit. I got a lot of people asking me about what head unit this is, and it's just an iDoing one. I did a whole video on it. If you guys go through my channel, you'll find the video. A lot of times you can get the answers you're looking for just by looking for them. Give you a quick look under the hood here. We don't have a whole lot to talk about for an intro here, guys, so just give you the Reader's Digest version. This is the 4-liter 1GR V6, and this truck has 340,000 kilometers on it, and it still runs great. So we're gonna go ahead and go for a little test drive here. I'm gonna talk about what it's been like owning this truck for the last, 3 or 4 years and how it's been. Let's go for a little ride. All right, let's take the old girl for a little test drive. All right, so let me start off by addressing what I titled this video about. There's something that's bothering me about this truck, my main problem with it. So the backstory, if you're not familiar with it, is that this was my wife's truck before I met her. She used it for her woodworking business. And so it kind of just like landed in my lap that I didn't choose this truck chose me. And so my original plan was it needed a bunch of work. It was beat up from the feet up, man. And I was gonna kind of restore it, make it look good again. Mechanically, it's always been pretty good, but it had a lot of dents and bruises and stuff. So I was gonna fix it up and use it for a little bit of content, but I didn't have any desire to own a Toyota Tacoma. That's not for me. I always liked the Tundras much better. And so, yeah, the plan was fix it up, use it for a little bit of content, and then as soon as I can, sell it and get a Tundra or something else that I truly want that I would replace this with. And well, I don't know if maybe I'm unique in this or not, but I find that I get too connected to vehicles over a certain amount of time. So I feel like I have sort of a window, like maybe 1 year or less. If I own something, then I can let it go, no problem. I'm sort of one of those people that everything is for sale. If you give me the right offer, come get it. If it's a good enough deal, I'll take it. After that 1 year mark though, I sort of develop a connection with vehicles, and they're almost like members of the family, and it's really, really hard for me to let them go. Case in point, my MR2, my 4Runner, they're all like my forever vehicles, right? I can't picture myself ever getting rid of them. This truck was not supposed to be that. This truck means nothing to me. I didn't buy it, I didn't save up for it, I didn't go shopping for it. I just got it. But I feel like, not just with vehicles, but any type of equipment, whether it's a tool, vehicle, whatever, once you have enough time spent with it, or even better yet, you've spent time working on it and busting your knuckles on it and getting frustrated and, wrenching away on it, that connection really grows with it, and then it's no longer just a tool or an appliance or a vehicle. Then it becomes a bit more of a member of the family, and that's kind of what I'm facing right now, where I still don't really want to own a Tacoma. I think a Tacoma doesn't, especially this truck, it doesn't suit our family. It's not what we need, especially this little access cab. You can't put a baby seat back there and put 2 adults in the front here comfortably. And yet, as time goes on, I'm seeing it harder and harder for me to get rid of it. I've fallen in love with this little truck. So anyways, I don't want to feed into the like typical Tacoma fanboy stuff. I'm not one of them. I am the first person to admit that the Toyota Tacoma has plenty of downfalls. They're not perfect trucks, okay? But I can say that I get it now. The people that are such...
Watch out, vehicle on shoulder ahead.
I don't care. Get out of my way. The people that are such diehard fans of these Tacomas, I understand now, because my 3-4 year whatever ownership experience has been fantastic, because this poor old truck, as I mentioned earlier in the intro, has 340,000 kilometers on it. And I will admit to you, I have not been kind to this truck. I've not been a good owner. It is overdue for some maintenance, and I haven't done anything to this thing to keep it running smoothly. And you know, maintenance is super important on any vehicle, whether it's a Toyota truck or it's some crappy Chrysler product. You got to maintain them. You got to keep the fluids clean. You got to stay on top of stuff. I've done nothing to this truck other than put gas in it and the oil change here and there, and I try to wash it and keep it somewhat clean during the time that I've owned it. I haven't really taken very good care of it, and I know the people that owned this truck before us took horrible care of it. Anyways, that's enough rambling about that. Let's get into a little bit more about what this truck is like to own and drive, and sort of the ins and outs of second gen Tacoma, the second gen experience here. I'm a fairly big dude. I'm 6'3" and a couple, maybe too many pounds, and I'm quite comfortable in this truck. Forward visibility is really good in this truck, and I guess on that note, let's talk about what is so good about these second gen Tacomas, and it's definitely their simplicity and their basic design. I feel like anybody can hop in this truck and just go and just drive. It doesn't matter if you are a brand new driver, you just got your driver's license, or you've driven everything under the sun for the last 50 years. Everything is very intuitive. It's right in front of you. Everything is engineered in a way that it just makes sense if you want to use it. Even these, like, you got knobs here for the climate control. Even my 4Runner has like push buttons that you have to go one step at a time, like a half a degree at a time if you want to go up or down. Well, here in Ontario, at certain times of the year, one day you got the AC blasting, and then the very next day you're switching all the way back to the heater. And with this, look at that, boom, it's just a knob. Super easy. And the rest of the truck is all kind of that same way. It's just so intuitive and simple and basic, and it's just kind of a shame that modern vehicles have gone in a direction where they have to add features to the brochure to be able to sell their vehicles, whether you need them or not. And they're just getting so complicated. So to get back on the whole maintenance thing, this truck has the 4-liter 1GR V6 engine, which is sort of like the best of the best in the world of Tacomas. A lot of people prefer this over the 3.5s and the 3rd gen, and I think most people prefer this over the new turbocharged 4-cylinders, but it truly is a great engine. And the ease of maintenance, I think, is its biggest sort of draw. And you can do your own oil changes on this truck, even if you're not that mechanically inclined. Everything is really easy to access. There's no extra steps required. Like my 4Runner, I have to drop the skid plate out of the way in order to get at the oil filter. This one, it's right up on top of the engine. Super easy to get at. Everything, again, is just really user-focused and basic. Now, as much as I like to play sort of the devil's advocate when people are comparing the 4.7 V8 to this 4-liter V6, and they're always complaining about the need to replace the timing belts on the V8 engines. Well, I'm the first one to be like, well, that's not a big deal. Who cares? Like, every few years you have to shell out and do it. Whatever. There's so much good about that engine that it's worth it. But I'd be lying to you if I said that when I'm owning this truck, I'm kind of happy to not have to worry about timing belts on this one, because in my specific case, that would mean I'm changing twice the timing belts if both my Tacoma and my 4Runner had them. So that's definitely a strength for this Tacoma, and it doesn't matter which engine you get, whether it's the 4-cylinder or the V6, they're all timing chains. So it's just kind of a Tacoma thing that you don't have to worry about a timing belt. Another thing that I'm really impressed with these Tacomas is how maneuverable they are. And part of that is just because it is a mid-size pickup truck. You know, it's just the sheer size of it. But the turning radius and combined with the visibility, it's like, it really feels like you're driving a 4Runner. So if you've ever, you know, wished that you could get a 4Runner with a pickup truck bed in the back, you can. That's exactly what these Tacomas are. At least that's what they feel like to me. Now, even with the double cab in the back, you still don't have the same rear seat space as a 4Runner does, but when you're just driving this and looking forwards, if you didn't know that it was a pickup truck bed behind you, you would not know that you're driving a pickup truck. That's another big benefit of these second-gen Tacomas that people really love, is the composite beds that they come with. First of all, that means that you don't have to shell out the money for a bed liner. It's just the material that it's made out of. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing is that, well, it's a pretty tough material, and I've read and heard a lot of Tacoma owners boast about how, you know, they've never even put a scratch or a dent in their bed because it's such a durable material. Well, this truck would beg to differ. It's got like a big hole in it, and I don't know what happened to it before I got it that caused this hole. I don't know what this thing has been through, but I can vouch that this composite bed is not indestructible. This one does need a bit of a patch job on it. But speaking of the bed, another thing that I really like about these trucks is that the bed sides just bolt on. And so in the event that you have to replace a whole bed side, whether it's a car crash or just whatever, if you're like me, and I did have to do that, oh, here we go, boy. It just bolts on. There's no welding, no epoxy, no nothing. These trucks really are just held together with 10mm bolts for the most part. It's really wild. Now, if you're gonna buy a Toyota Tacoma, I think it is important to manage your expectations, because it's not gonna behave like a full-size truck. It can't do what a full-size truck can do, and that's one of the trade-offs that you get with the ability that, like, I can take this truck downtown and find a parking spot, no problem for it. Something like a Tundra, that's a more stressful situation, you know what I mean? But with that comes that, you know, you don't have a ton of payload for this pickup bed. You're not gonna load this thing down with a ton of weight. You're not gonna tow a real heavy trailer with this thing. It's just not, it depends on what type of work you're doing. It might be the perfect solution, but if you need a full-size pickup truck, you're not gonna be able to get away with a small truck like a Tacoma. 3rd gen boy, very nice, looking good. I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the suspension and the ride quality on this thing with all these speed bumps and stuff. As you can see, I'm just kind of rolling over them. These aren't super sharp speed bumps anyways, but this is a pretty rough road, the usual one that I take my test drives down coming up ahead here. And we'll drive this through and see what it feels like. So first of all, this is an old truck. It does have a few little clunks and squeaks, and it's not perfect. It's got some miles on it, you know? Ride quality, I am really impressed with how well this rides for an unloaded pickup truck. And I feel like I'm a little bit spoiled with the Fox suspension on my 4Runner, so when I drive them back to back, don't get me wrong, like, this is really good, but it very much feels like a truck with stock suspension on it. Like, it's not handling the bumps on this road anywhere near the same as, say, my 4Runner or the TRD Pro Tundra that I did recently. It's a little more bouncy. The suspension just doesn't have the proper dampening for really rough stuff. Handling is okay, like in the corners and stuff. I feel like this truck handles better than you would expect that it would, really, to be honest, because it feels more like you're driving a car, you know? It doesn't feel like you're driving a sort of a top-heavy pickup truck. With that said, though, this truck could certainly benefit from a suspension upgrade, and I'm on the fence. My original plan was just like, fix this thing up, get rid of it, and get something that I really want that I can make content with. But I just feel like I don't want to get rid of this truck when there's still something left on the table. Like, there's still more that I could have done to it to make it more my style. And right now, you know, the silver with the black wheels and the stock ride height, it's just not me. This isn't how I would build a Tacoma for myself. So I feel like I got unfinished business here. So with that said, I've thought about even just finding a set of like Bilstein 5100s or something on Marketplace and throwing those on just to level the front end, because on that note, I'm not interested in just doing a spacer lift, like a leveling kit or something, because to me, I don't even like referring to it as lifting a truck. I like to consider it more upgrading the suspension. So if I just put spacers on the front end of this thing, yeah, it's gonna sit a little more level, it's gonna look nicer, but it's gonna ride exactly the same as it does right now, which I feel like is certainly something that could be improved upon. And so I've got no interest in doing spacers, because the only other benefit is that, well, it's a cheap way to lift your truck up to fit bigger tires, but these tires fit fine at stock ride height, and they're like brand new still on this thing. I don't have any real desire to buy new tires for this thing. Well, I can already tell you this is going to be a bit disappointing with the old tired 4-liter, but let's see if she honks. Not really. She doesn't honk, boys. It's certainly adequate. There's nothing wrong with it. It obviously it got up to speed perfectly fine, but it's nothing exciting. It's not gonna blow your hair back. It's not gonna make you smile. It's exactly what a V6 pickup truck would be expected to feel like when you're giving it the beans. In terms of road manners on the highway, though, you can really rack up the miles in one of these trucks. They're really smooth. They're really, like, the gearing with this 5-speed auto is pretty well suited to the truck. I mean, long trips, you're sitting comfortably. The seating position is pretty comfy. The seats are comfy on these things. The revs are nice and low. For a V6, for a smaller engine, this 4-liter definitely produces some decent torque. Not anything compared to the V8, but it's still, I think, pretty good in terms of not needing to downshift to climb up hills and stuff. Yeah, highway speeds with this truck are very, very, like, stress-free. Very, like, you can just kind of eat up the miles with these things. So it wouldn't be a Tacoma video if we didn't discuss the whole rusty frame thing, right? You know, I see a lot of people kind of complaining that the biggest problem with these trucks is that the frames rust so prematurely and they're horrible for rusting. And that's true. Like, you're not wrong if you believe that. But let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of any other pickup truck manufacturer that owns up to it and says, whoops, our frame's rusted too quickly. Bring your truck to the dealership and let us give you a completely new one. Rebuild your truck on a brand new frame free of charge. I've never heard of that anywhere else. And that's exactly what happened with these second-gen Tacomas. So yeah, they do rust prematurely. But trucks like this one that had the frame replaced, now we have a 2006 model truck that only has a, I don't know what it is, like a 4, maybe 5-year-old frame on it. When you combine that with a drivetrain that's gonna basically last till there's nothing left on this earth but cockroaches, I think you've got a recipe for some serious longevity then. So in a way, I almost feel like, and this might be a hot take as the broccoli-headed kids would call it, I'm almost glad that these frames rusted prematurely, because then a bunch of us got brand new frames for free. Because here's the thing, here, especially in Ontario, every vehicle rusts. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a manufacturer defect, like what these Tacomas were considered, or it's just regular wear and tear. You don't get your truck oil sprayed and you drive it in the wintertime, it's gonna rust. This truck is just so easy to drive, to the point where, to be honest, it's actually boring. The truth is, if I'm given the choice, I almost always choose to drive my V8 4Runner because it's just more of an experience. But if all you're looking for is a truck that gets the job done for you and doesn't break down and doesn't require a bunch of maintenance and a bunch of attention, it's a good thing. You want a boring vehicle. These aren't fun to drive. Like, it's almost like they're too good to the point of being boring, and they just do the job well. Speaking of doing the job well, these brakes sure don't. That's one thing that I'm going to complain about with this truck, is these brakes suck. And I'm gonna have to take a look. I don't know if it's due for a brake job, but, and I'm not sure, maybe it's related to the fact that these Tacomas all have drum brakes in the rear, but there's times where I feel like I got to put 2 feet on the pedal on this thing and it's still hardly slowing down, and it's not a heavy vehicle by any means. So I'm not sure if that is just specific to this truck or if it's a second-gen Tacoma thing, but the braking sucks. Another thing that I really appreciate about these Tacomas, though, is sort of the community that comes along with them. And a lot of people do misunderstand that as like the so-called like Tacoma snobs, right? Where they're like super closed-minded. They feel like anything that isn't a Toyota Tacoma is automatically a piece of junk. And I feel like that's not an accurate idea of how every Tacoma owner feels, but the community is great. There's so much aftermarket support for these trucks. I don't know, like you don't necessarily get a Jeep wave like the Jeep people do whenever you see them, but I have gotten waves from Tacoma owners when I've been driving my 4Runner and stuff like that. And it's kind of one of those things, especially as now these trucks are getting a little bit older. When people see them, they kind of go, oh, cool. That guy appreciates a good, simple, old truck. And it's like I don't know, maybe like a certain level of mutual respect that we have for each other by like, oh, okay, that person also didn't buy into the whole modern vehicle thing. But yeah, like driving this truck back to back with the Tundra, that second gen Tundra that I did a video on recently, in terms of like drivability and just how easy it is to maneuver and sort of the size of it, it is truly a night and day difference that the Tacoma is much easier to place in a lane. It's easier to turn. I never have any like stressful thoughts about like, oh, am I gonna be able to fit around that corner or in that lane, or where am I gonna find a parking spot to fit this thing? You know, that really is where these mid-sized trucks, and it's not just the Tacoma, like all of you Toyota haters that might be watching this, first of all, I don't know why you're following a channel that loves Toyotas, but it goes for the Nissan Frontiers and trucks like that as well, the Chevy Colorado, like that. It's definitely a benefit with these smaller trucks. If you don't need the big space and the big towing capacity, then these things really are easy to own and easy to drive for sure. But yeah, over all these bumps and stuff, it's just, you can feel kind of the wheels. It's not quite like blown shocks. Like the suspension on this truck is fairly new. I think they did it when they replaced the frame, but it doesn't like hug the road over the rough stuff like aftermarket suspension does or higher quality suspension does. And so I'd be really curious to see what this truck would be like with just a minor upgrade. So I don't know, comment below guys if you want to see me kind of upgrade the suspension on this truck and do something a little bit more similar to the 4Runner maybe. I don't know, comment below, let me know what you think. I think the best way to describe these trucks is that they're just so usable. Let's go. Man, even with the factory exhaust on this truck, it's still, this 4-liter engine just still doesn't sound that great. And I might be a little bit biased that I'm not really a fan of the sound of V6s at all. And this isn't just me kind of complaining about the second gen Tacoma. I have never heard a Toyota Tacoma with a good sounding engine. So I don't mean to offend people, but I'm more of a V8 guy. I really love the sound of a good V8, and I've never heard an aftermarket exhaust on one of these 4-liters that to me sounded good. And even in stock form, like it's nice and quiet, and I'm gonna leave it that way. I don't intend to put an aftermarket exhaust on this truck. You hear a lot of mechanical noise and stuff with this 4-liter. So what does the future hold for me and this old Tacoma? Well, I do have some more tinkering to do with it. I just ordered a set of new headlights for it. I want to clean up the front end a little bit more and some other stuff. I'm gonna do something about the black wheels on it. Maybe I'll keep these and just have them powder coated. Make it a little bit more of my own. Again, I might upgrade the suspension on it, but no matter how much I do love this truck now, and I do have some like kind of time invested in it, and now it means something to me, I think at some point I am going to want to make the switch from this truck to probably a pre-facelift second gen Tundra. I feel like that's just the perfect pickup truck for me. I've always wanted one. Anyways, normally in this series of videos, the second video is always like a foam bath for the vehicle before I give it back to its owner. Well, I'm the owner and nobody seems to watch those detailing videos anyways, so I think I'm probably gonna be skipping that one this week, guys. Unless you want me to do it, feel free to let me know if you want to see me detail this Tacoma. Man, this guy's just tailgating the crap out of that guy. Woo-wee, calm down, Scooby-Doo. So if you're thinking about getting one of these second generation Tacomas for yourself, and I think you totally should, they're great trucks, go ahead and watch this video next about all the common problems that these trucks are known for. There's not a lot of big ones, but there are a few things that you're gonna wanna know if you're shopping for one. Just a few things to look out for. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Check out that video next, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.